This episode is brought to you by DistroKid.
When you think about businesses that are selling through the roof, like Aloe or Allbirds, sure, you think about a great product, a cool brand, and great marketing. But an often overlooked secret is actually the businesses behind the business, making selling, and for shoppers, buying, simple. For millions of businesses, that business is Shopify. Nobody does online business better than Shopify. It's home of Shop Pay, the #1 checkout in the world. You can use it to boost conversions up to 50%, meaning way less carts going abandoned and way more sales going through to checkout. Sign up for your $1 per month trial period at shopify.com/income, all lowercase. Go to shopify.com/income to upgrade your selling today. That's shopify.com/income.
Hey everybody, After Party Week continues here at Chris DeMakes a Podcast. And today, we're going way back to one of the early episodes that Chris and I recorded. Once in a while, we'll do an episode about a classic album. And the album that we're going to dive into in this episode is the one that changed it all in the early 90s, Nevermind. As a reminder, if you enjoy these After Party episodes, there's hundreds of them available to you right now by signing up for our Patreon at chrisdemakes.com. Plus, you get a new one every Monday. Plus, you allow us to continue making Chris DeMakes a Podcast. Okay, here you go. From October 11th of 2021, this is episode 21 of the After Party. Classic Albums Revisited. Nevermind.
Welcome to the After Party. Ready, set, let's go. Welcome to the After Party, the show after the show. Learn a little something new. Join us for the ride. Chris and Chris want all of you to know. The After Party's where it's at. The show after the show.
Well, hey everybody, welcome to another After Party, and we had so much fun revisiting Dookie that we decided we were going to keep this going. Classic Albums Revisited with 1991's Nevermind from Nirvana.
Yeah, man, we just celebrated the 30-year anniversary of this a month or two ago. September 24th of 1991, this album came around and kind of changed the musical world. I was in middle school when this came out, and I know I had it. I know that most people had it, considering it went on to sell 30 million copies and make it one of the best-selling albums of all time. It's pretty crazy. And Chris, when I was doing a little research on this, they recorded this album for $65,000, which that's a nice budget for our bands, but like that's a good return on investment they got on this album is what I'm getting at.
Absolutely. And, you got to remember, too, that I think Butch Vig did Gish, the first Smashing Pumpkins record. So Butch was relatively unknown. Gish, wasn't a huge chart topper. It was well received, but the Pumpkins didn't find success till their second record, where they completely blew up. So, $65,000 was a lot of money for a punk band, and I mean they recorded Bleach for $600. It was basically a demo.
So definitely a big step up. Butch Vig worked out of a studio in Madison, Wisconsin called Smart Studios. Chris, have you ever recorded at Smart?
I've never recorded Smart, no, but I'm familiar with it. And a little side note, he no longer has it anymore. He sold it because he never ended up using it. But Roger had the 2-inch analog tape machine that was used on Nevermind.
That's awesome, man. Yeah, that studio, we recorded Punchline album Just Say Yes there. With Sean O'Keefe, and he had worked under Butch Vig. So when we recorded there, they had the Nevermind albums on the wall and Gish, and a Death Cab album was done there. But Sean told us how Butch brought up the original reels, I guess, of Nevermind and put them on there and was soloing the tracks.
Yeah, there's a thing on YouTube with Butch. He revisited the record where he does that. It's pretty incredible when he pulls the stuff up and talks about it. And Kurt wasn't the easiest guy
right.
to tame in the studio, and Butch was probably the only guy that could have gotten through to him during that period. There was a lot of going back and forth, and we'll get into it later. I got some stories about Gary Gersh, who was the president of Capitol Records when we signed to Capitol. Gary was Nirvana's A&R guy back at Geffen back in the day. So some really, really interesting, stuff. But I mean, these guys, literally, they came off Bleach. They were, cruising around, playing punk dives around the country to a couple hundred people. Made this record, and none of them could have ever projected what it was going to do to their lives, Butch Vig included.
Yeah, definitely, man. I don't know what it was that set Nirvana apart so much. I mean, but they definitely didn't sound like anybody else or anything I had ever heard. And I think the world kind of agreed, and there's a lot of aggression on this album mixed with melody. It's such a perfect combo.
It wasn't a pop punk album. It was a punk album with pop sensibilities. It had melody, like you said. And, I know you and I have talked about this before. It's really crazy to think back. 1991 was my first year of college. I remember like it was yesterday, the impact and when this record hit. But, 1991, if you were to go back 30 years from that, when I was in college, that would have been 1961. And it just seemed like it was, 15 centuries back to me. It might as well have been at that point. It's just amazing that 30 years has lapsed since this record came out, and the fact that you listen to records from 61 to 91, huge difference. Huge difference. This record still holds up.
Something I thought was interesting, Chris, that I also read was that Dave Grohl said that Kurt told him music comes first and lyrics come second, and above all, Kurt focused on the melodies of his songs. I know that I'm in that school, or I think you're in that school as far as melody versus lyrics. Yeah, you got to have both, but melody comes first. I believe in that.
Yeah. And, before we dive into the record, I just want to say I had a buddy in college. I had just met him. I had known him for a month and met him in the dorms. And he said, have you ever heard of Nirvana? And I had heard of them, but I wasn't really familiar with Bleach. I might have heard Floyd the Barber or something on a comp, but just wasn't really into it. Again, very raw sound. Still not one of my favorite records. But Ken played me Smells Like Teen Spirit. He had an advanced copy of the record, and I was like, what is this? I knew something was on the horizon because, you and I have revisited the year 1991 here on the After Party, and we know what was going on then. It was a mixture of hard rock and glam metal and dance. Some of it good, a lot of it bad, and Nirvana came along and kind of ushered in this whole new musical landscape.
Yeah, and they didn't mess around. Smells Like Teen Spirit is the first song on this album. What a way to start an album. We're just going to put the greatest, probably one of the greatest rock songs of all time as the first track on this album and just get it going. I don't even know what you can say. What more can you say about this song? I don't know.
The track is just, it's timeless. And the lyrics, again, it had angst to it, but it had melody. And then a lot of the aura of the band was, what the hell is Kurt saying?
Yeah.
Mosquito, libido, people had the lyrics wrong. I didn't know what the hell he was saying at the time. And that was part of the whole mystery to it. Who are these guys? They're not dressed up. Their haircuts are terrible. They're wearing thrift store clothes. They don't give a damn though. They don't care. And it was just a huge turn of events from what was going on. Everything had just become so commercialized and with you had to have a certain look, and Nirvana came along and said, no, you don't.
Yeah, and from what I read, Kurt was scrambling for the lyrics last minute. He complained about people trying to scrutinize and analyze the lyrics because I think, talk about not being able to understand them. It might have just been a situation kind of just whatever came out of him,
Yeah. And, I had mentioned this a little bit ago about Gary Gersh, who was their A&R person over at Geffen. And when we signed to Capitol, I was just enamored by his stories. I couldn't get enough of them. And, of course, Craig Aronson worked under Gary. Craig was our A&R guy at Capitol and of course, again, at Warner Brothers. But Craig corroborated these stories. When the album was finally mixed, and I want to say Butch mixed it. There may have been another mixer. And Gary had called Kurt and and told him he needed to talk to him, and came down to the offices or whatever, and Kurt came in and sat down. It was just Kurt and Gary. He says, "Hey man, I'm not happy with the mix." "What do you mean?" It's not punchy. It's not doing it for me. These songs are amazing, but the mix isn't, And he said Kurt Cobain proceeded to take every chair. He was throwing chairs through windows, ripping every picture off the wall, throwing a full temper tantrum, breaking records off the wall, smashing Gary's desk. And finally, Gary just looks at him and says, when he had finally stopped, he said, "Are you done?" And Kurt just walked out of the office. Well, I don't know if it was that particular night. I think it was that night or the very next night that Kurt showed up drunk out of his mind with a bottle at like midnight to Gary's house. Knocks on the door. Gary invites him in, and he's I don't know if he's crying or what. He's upset. "I'm sorry I did what I did. I don't understand." And they proceeded to listen to Rain and Blood, Slayer, till like 3 a.m, getting drunk on a bottle of whiskey. And Andy Wallace mixed that record, and he was like, you need something that's going to knock people on their ass, and this isn't the mix. You need to get someone to do it, and that's when Andy became involved.
Wow, that's insane. That's so cool you have the inside track on that story. I can't imagine walking into someone from a label's office and destroying it and that person being cool with it. He must have really known Nirvana had something.
Yeah. Well, and one last aside before we, break into the second track on the record. Craig Aronson, he had just started working at Capitol in the spring of '94. I want to say like February, like 2 months before Kurt passed away. And they would do these marketing meetings every Monday or Tuesday. I want to say it was Tuesday. And, they get all the staff and our people together, and Gary would have his presentation. "Hey, here's what's going on. Here's what's charting. Here's what we have to work on." Just kind of, lifting up the whole company. And that morning, Craig had told me later that Gary knew that Kurt had committed suicide. And none of the staff knew. This is before, you got all your news instantaneously on smartphones. He said Gary walked in stoically, gave the meeting, half hour, 45 minutes. No one knew what was going on, and then everyone got out of the meeting, and as soon as they got out into the hallways, people were just freaking out that Kurt had passed away. And I guess Gary had left the building and went home to grieve at that point. But Craig, I always remember that he, Gary was professional enough, and Gary was also Francis Bean's godfather.
Wow.
Yeah. So what a tortured soul, but it's the tortured souls that make great music.
I mean, you brought up the passage of time earlier, and wow, it's 30 years. And what 30 years seemed like in 1991, it took you back to 1961. Well, all this stuff happened. Sometimes I think about how short that window was for the Beatles and how much they put out. This window for Nirvana is tiny. It's a very tiny, because I'm trying to think of when Kurt Cobain died. Was it 93 or 94?
No, he died April 8th of 94.
94. Okay, so this
So literally they were a band success-wise when all this hit for about 2.5 years.
That is crazy.
And Dave Grohl's been on the record as saying that the whole time period, he was so young. Everything happened so fast, these guys. In 2.5 years, as we all know, getting older is not a long passage of time. And Dave said it feels like a dream. It feels like it was 10 seconds of his life. Second song, In Bloom, just that drum groove, which Dave was nice enough at the Rock and Roll Hall induction to give credit to Chad Channing, the original drummer, for that, those tom parts in the beginning of the song, that drum hook that just reeled you in. And then, of course, Come As You Are. And we had talked about on the episode of Dookie, Rob Cavallo and of course Billy Joe Armstrong being huge Beatles fans. That was probably Kurt's biggest influence was the Beatles,
right.
And that was another thing, point of contention with Butch Vig. This story was told to me also by Gary, that Butch, Kurt had went in and done this incredible vocal on Teen Spirit, and for the chorus, actually for the whole song. But Butch then said to him, "I want you to get back in the vocal booth." "For what?" "I want you to double the chorus." "Why?" "What are you talking about?" Go double it. It'll sound bigger. Wow, that's lame. That's not punk rock. I don't want to do that. And he's like, John Lennon did it.
Yeah.
Kurt didn't have a leg to stand on. And man, that chorus, all those verses are just single track vocals. And then that chorus comes in and it wallops you. It's just so big.
It's amazing what doubling vocals does. For anyone out there who doesn't record vocals or play in a band, it makes a world of difference. And if you do it right, it sounds like one powerful vocal.
Yeah. So what do we got after Come As You Are? I don't have the track listing in front of me, nor did I listen to the record before we did this. I know all the songs.
You didn't even need to.
Yeah, I kind of wanted to come in and just kind of wing it in a sense.
Well, next is a rocker. It's Breed. The first song on the album that wasn't actually a single, even though all these songs feel like singles, They all get played on rock radio now. I think every song on this album.
Which is interesting that Breed, because, as you have mentioned before, I think about the Dookie episode, is, that's your second, third, and fourth, definitely. Those positions were your singles positions. I don't think that they thought of this as a singles album when they recorded it.
No.
This was so far left of center of what was going on in the musical climate that they just, okay, Breed's going to be the fourth song. Maybe if they had the hindsight of this is going to be a 20 million album seller, that maybe we would do the track listing different. However, I think the track listing's perfect.
Hey, everybody. We'll be right back with the after party after a few words from our sponsors.
Get your saddest songs together and get ready for a decidedly not sad time at Sad Song Summer Camp, July 15th through the 18th at Full Moon Resort in the Catskills. Join the Milk Carton Kids, Joe Henry, Paper Wings, and more for an unforgettable musical experience just 2.5 hours from New York City. Whether you're a songwriter or a fan, this all-inclusive retreat offers immersive classes, performances, and the chance to step beyond backstage. Every participant gets hands-on time with the artists to fine-tune their songwriting, plus immersive classes and evening performances in a stunning mountain setting. Spots are extremely limited. Learn more and register now at www.sadsongsummercamp.com/DeMakes. Looking to elevate your music career? DistroKid is a digital music distribution service that enables musicians to distribute their music to online stores and streaming platforms such as Spotify, Apple Music, YouTube Music, Amazon, Tidal, and many more. DistroKid collects earnings and payments, sending them to you, the artist. With DistroKid, artists unlock a world of possibilities. From easily paying collaborators with splits to securing your music with DistroLock, DistroKid covers all bases. Plus, you can promote your releases with Hyperfollow and create eye-catching visuals with a Spotify Canvas generator, all for free. But that's not all. Introducing the DistroKid app, now available on iOS and Android. Artists can manage their releases, view streaming stats, and withdraw earnings, all from the palm of their hand. And for those looking to perfect their sound, check out Mixia. With its simple interface and customizable mastering options, artists can make their music sound polished and professional within minutes. And don't forget about Instant Share, DistroKid's newest feature. Share large files securely with collaborators, producers, and more, ensuring your music streams at the highest quality. Ready to take your music to the next level? Download the DistroKid app and explore their suite of tools today. Plus, listeners can enjoy 30% off their first year by visiting distrokid.com/VIP/DeMakes. That's distrokid.com/VIP/DeMakes.
Have you ever spotted McDonald's hot, crispy fries right as they're being scooped into the carton? And time just stands still. Ba-da-ba-ba-ba.
The Red Hot Clearance event is on right now at Burlington, and I'm excited for the markdowns. It's all about savings on top of savings throughout the store. This is when I stock up on styles for my closet, home decor, and much more, because there's up to 70% off other retailers' prices on clearance. I mean, I'm going every day because these prices, too hot to miss. Burlington. Deals, brands, wow. Styles and selections may vary by location.
Make your next move with American Express Business Platinum. Enjoy complimentary access to the American Express Global Lounge Collection. And with a welcome offer of 150,000 points after you spend $20,000 on purchases on the card within your first 3 months of membership, your business can soar to new heights. Terms apply. Learn more at americanexpress.com/business-platinum. Amex Business Platinum. Built for business by American Express.
Close your eyes, exhale, feel your body relax, and let go of whatever you're carrying today.
Well, I'm letting go of the worry that I wouldn't get my new contacts in time for this class. I got them delivered free from 1-800-CONTACTS. Oh my gosh, they're so fast.
And breathe.
Oh, sorry. I almost couldn't breathe when I saw the discount they gave me on my first order. Oh, sorry. Namaste.
Visit 1-800-CONTACTS.com today to save on your first order.
1-800-CONTACTS.
Rated T for Teen.
Each year, thousands of adults lose their shred. It's an epidemic simply known as shred loss. But it doesn't have to be this way, because rekindling your shred is as easy as playing the new Tony Hawk's Pro Skater 3 and 4. And with new parks, cross-platform multiplayer, and sick new game modes, we can put an end to shred loss everywhere. Get the new Tony Hawk's Pro Skater 3 and 4 and show the world that the shred's not dead. Pre-order Tony Hawk's Pro Skater 3 and 4 and play the Foundry demo.
Hey business owners, we know you know the importance of maximizing every dollar. With the Delta SkyMiles Reserve Business American Express card, you can make your expenses work just as hard as you. From afternoon coffee runs to stocking office supplies and even team dinners, you can earn miles on all your business expenses. Plus, you can earn 110,000 bonus miles for a limited time through July 16th. The Delta SkyMiles Reserve Business Card. If you travel, you know. Minimum spending requirements and terms apply. Offer ends 7/16/25.
You know that one friend who somehow knows everything about money? Yeah, now imagine they live in your phone. Say hey to Experian, your big financial friend. It's the app that helps you check your FICO score, find ways to save, and basically feel like a financial genius. And guess what? It's totally free. So go on, download the Experian app. Trust me, having a BFF like this is a total game changer.
Your burger is served, and this is our finest Pepsi Zero Sugar. Its sweet profile perfectly balances the savory notes of your burger.
That is one perfect combination. Burgers deserve Pepsi.
And now, back to the after party. Yeah, and then after that is Lithium.
I'm so happy, 'cause today found my friends are in my head. I'm so ugly, that's okay, 'cause so are you.
Which I talked about this song recently. That's one of those songs that just seems like an anthem for angsty teenagers, you know, the lyrics, the feel of it almost feels lazy or something in the verses.
Yeah, and you really can't underestimate Dave's involvement. I mean, Grohl was doing a lot of the harmonies on the record that I didn't know at the time. I thought it was all Kurt.
Right.
But just his drumming, his feel. Nirvana took a page out of the Pixies book. I mean, their whole thing was built on dynamics. These very soft, almost lazy verses that you were just saying. That's a good word. You look at Teen Spirit, dun dun, the verses are just, and the snare and the hi-hat's tight, and it just kind of opens up a little bit at the end of the measures, and then when the chorus hits with that snare roll, and all hell breaks loose. And those dynamics are so important, not to take anything away from Nirvana's two previous drummers, but Dave definitely deserves credit for what that record sounded like.
And speaking of Dave, he didn't actually even play drums on the next song, on Polly.
Polly wants a cracker. Think I should get off her first. Think she wants some water to put out the blowtorch.
I remember once again when we recorded it Smart that Sean O'Keefe told us that the one song that they kept from Smart, because they re-recorded everything at Sound City, but the one song they kept was Something in the Way. Well, everything I read today says it's Polly, both of those songs have like the chill vibe or whatever.
And that's interesting. And that kind of goes and shows you the great producers. I believe Butch Walker said it in his episode. He was actually producing the last Green Day record, where Butch said they brought the title track in. And it's like, what do you want me to do with this? I don't feel the need to taint it with my fingerprints just for the sake of it or for ego's sake. The song is what it is. It's great. And I think that's how they felt with Polly.
And then, dude, Territorial Pissings. And I got to tell you, this song is insane, first of all. It starts out with the "Come on, people now" thing at the beginning.
Come on, people now! Smile on your brother! Everybody get together! Try to love one another right now!
By the end of this song, it is so insane and chaotic. It sounds like Kurt is absolutely destroying his vocal cords at the end of this. Dude, for some reason, on the 30th anniversary of this album, I posted this video. I don't know why, but Punchline covered this song. And we covered it on a tour with Bowling for Soup, playing in like some festival in like Iowa somewhere, and someone took a video of us playing it. And I thought we played it pretty good, but I'm like, wow, why did we cover that? I'm glad we did, but if someone hadn't taken that video, I wouldn't have necessarily remembered it. It was just like an interesting choice, I thought. And we must have just been listening to this album and being like, holy shit, this song's amazing, because it was fun to play.
If I were to give my opinion on it, I think that's the only other track besides Teen Spirit that could have led this record off.
Whoa.
It's that aggressive.
Yeah, that would have been a crazy ass first track. Could you imagine? People's heads would have exploded.
Again, I think that the record, the sequencing is perfect. I would never want to change history, of course, but I think that's the only other song that could have competed with Teens just for an opening track, just for the punch to the gut alone.
Dude, I think that maybe they were thinking about vinyl, and if that was the case, this would probably be the first track of side B. You know, if it's a 12-song album, that could have been the thinking there, that maybe it's the restart of the second side.
Yeah, and I never had the vinyl of this, so I don't know. You may be right.
Well, anyway, next up, probably my favorite song on the album, which I can't believe wasn't a single, Drain You.
One baby, two, another says I'm lucky to meet you. I don't care what you think, yes, it is about me. It is now my duty to completely drain you.
This is like a pop song to me or something, you know? I don't know. I think this is a perfect song.
It's interesting. The later you get in this record, I guess Drain You would be considered an album track, but I listen to this album as kind of all one thing now. I don't even really hear the singles anymore, even though the ones that are overplayed in Bloom, Come As You Are, because in my mind, I kind of think of it as what I had said earlier, where they never thought this thing was going to be. I don't think any of them. They just were making a record.
Well,
and
maybe, dude, I don't mean to interrupt you, but maybe they did know. I'm only saying that based on your story about Gary Gersh and Kurt coming in there and fucking shit up. Like, if they, like, who's going to put up with that if they didn't know? You know?
Yeah, I think that your great A&R people, they have great instincts. Gary was amazing instinctually as an A&R person, and he ended up, of course, like I said, being the president of Capitol Records. The guy knew his stuff, and I don't know what those mixes sounded like, but I imagine they sounded flat, and they needed somebody like Andy Wallace to come in and really deliver. And again, anytime I hear Teen Spirit, it takes me right back to In the Pines Apartments in Gainesville, Florida, with my friend Ken Fleischer, and he put that record on that teen spirit, that song, and I just couldn't believe how powerful that tune was. And Andy Wallace is no joke. He's a great mixer.
I thought it was interesting, too, and it applies to a lot of these songs, but especially Drain You. I didn't know until I was, like, reading about this today that supposedly a lot of these songs are about Toby Vale of Bikini Kill, who Kurt had a dysfunctional relationship with. And, a lot of these things, like some lyrics from this One Baby to Another Says, I'm lucky to have met you. That was something that she had said to him. Pretty wild. I never knew that.
Yeah, I had heard there was stuff going on with that, but I didn't know if that was rumor or what. But I heard rumblings of that as well. But again, I'm not for certain.
Next up on the album, Lounge Act.
Don't regret a thing that I got. This friend you see makes me feel not wanting more than I could steal. I'll rest myself where I shoot. I'll allow my way to prove I see.
It's funny. It's one of those songs where I would have never thought about the fact that the song was called Lounge Act. It's just like you listen to the whole album and why is it called that?
And this one kind of has a loungy little swagger to it. This tune, of course, not a hit, buried in the record sequence and definitely an album track. But this song reminds me of the Vaselines, which Kurt was a huge fan of them. And of course, Nirvana covered Molly's Lips from the Vaselines.
Yeah.
And this track reminds me of that vibe.
I love Molly's Lips. That's a great song. That reminds me of seeing local bands play that song at local skating rinks. It's so good.
Yeah, that song's great.
Yeah, that's a great one. Stay Away, another great one. I always remembered that I had this CD, and I don't know if you had it, Chris, but it was called DGC Rarities, and it was Nirvana and Weezer and Beck and Counting Crows and the Posies and That Dog, of all rarities. And the rarity for Nirvana was Stay Away, except it was called Pay to Play. So that song used to be Pay to Play, it was the demo of it or whatever. So yeah, great aggressive punk rock song. I love it.
Wow, I didn't know that was a rewrite on the lyric on that one. That's interesting.
Yeah. I'll put a clip of Pay to Play.
Yeah, and of course, Pay to Play is probably referring to club owners back in the day, especially in the Hollywood, California area, and New York. Your high density, volume of bands, places where they would actually make bands either do buy-ons or sell tickets to get on the shows, which was incredibly lame.
I think it happened to a certain extent everywhere. There was
at some point
a certain amount of Pay to Play. Next on the album, it's On a Plane.
It's wrong, so what should I do? I'm on a plane, I can't complain.
Another awesome song. The melodies are so good on this album. I always think about the aggression, how good the drums sound, how hard this rocks, but honestly, the melodies are amazing. I think that's probably subconsciously what makes everyone love this album so much.
Yeah, and as A&R people, if there's no melody there, and there's some bands that the melody just isn't the thing. It's aggressive bands such as Slayer and a number of others. Then if it's not melody, then what is the allure? Sometimes novelty hits don't. They have a special thing about them and they become this thing. With Nirvana, I think ultimately that's why Gary let Kurt destroy his office. Let him have his tantrum, because he heard those melodies through all this brashness, this punk rock. Yeah, the record was polished in a sense, but it still had that aggressive tone. It was aggressive enough for the punks and everyone else, but it was poppy enough to sell to the masses.
Yeah, I can't like a band without melody. That's why I could never really get into hardcore music. I get the aggression. I love listening to aggressive music. It's such a release, whether you're working out or you're pissed off about something. I love the release of aggressive music.
Yeah.
But without the melody, also, it doesn't do anything for me. And I have friends who, hardcore will do stuff for them, and I'm just like, I don't get it. I'll listen to Glassjaw or Rage Against the Machine or something. But I can't get behind the lack of melody. And then, dude, we're at the end of the album, and very interesting way to end an album, because once again, as we touched on in the Green Day Dookie look back, what was the hidden track now is a track that's listed on the streaming services. So first we got Something in the Way, which is just a super chill, sad sounding song.
It's okay to eat fish, 'cause they don't have any feelings. Something in the way.
And where else would you have put that in the album sequencing? It had to be where it's at.
That's a good point. Yeah, you couldn't interrupt this album with this.
I mean, I couldn't hear this in between In Bloom and Come As You Are or something in the record, or, it just doesn't seem like it would fit anywhere else. And yeah, you want to talk about chill and moody. On the episode on YouTube, I say YouTube, that's where I had seen it with Butch Vig when he was, revisiting the album. He had talked about how, there was something about when Kurt first played this to him, he was like laying on his back on a couch playing it, and there was just this vibe. And then Kurt got on a stool or a chair or something with the acoustic, and they tried to track it, and it just wasn't happening. I think the vocal was even tracked with Kurt laying on his back. I think that they had a mic and up above his head, and he was just strumming the acoustic on a couch. You can go back and watch the video of it, but that when Butch talked about it. But there's definitely something moody here, and again, that's a great producer, man, that can come in and figure out a way like, hey, you got to lay down to sing this. I mean, that just seems absurd, but that's how they captured the track.
I heard that story too, and I think that's awesome. And yeah, it ends with this very chill, moody, vibey song after an album of rippers. And it's interesting. It's kind of like it brings you down at the end. But then the hidden track, which now is just a 13th track called Endless Nameless. I don't know how many minutes go by before it comes on. And then it is just insanity for like 6 minutes straight. It was often the song that Nirvana would close with at their shows and destroy their instruments or whatever other craziness they were going to do. And when I listened to that track today, which they laughed about it, I guess, saying like, yeah, the record ends and then there's silence and then this smacks you in the face a few minutes later, which was the whole idea of hidden tracks. Everyone thought that joke was funny in the 90s. But it's just chaos. This album has so many moments of pure aggressive chaos, and it's pretty awesome.
Yeah, and lastly, you never know about fate, but would there have been a Foo Fighters if Nirvana had continued on? Would we have gotten that great music from Dave? Would he have went on to become who he is? Would Nirvana still be as popular and still be selling out arenas and or stadiums, or would they have just been a 90s footnote, another band that released a couple more records and they just went to the wayside? They never captured that magic again, and it kind of went away. I mean, obviously, we'll never know. But man, what that band did in 2.5 years, I can't think of a band since then that changed the musical landscape like they did.
And Kurt being this dichotomy of being what appears to be a sensitive, feminist, progressive type person, but also with all his demons and problems. And I think a lot of people came down on him, especially then, obviously, as far as heroin addiction. But I think now people know a lot more that this is a disease, and it's all revisionist history now. But, you watch one documentary. Like I have a Nirvana Nevermind documentary. I'm looking at it right in front of me right now. You can watch that and have one impression, or you can watch Montage of Heck. I don't know if you watched that, Chris. Yeah. You can watch that and get a whole other impression. You're like, wow, fuck this guy. You know, like it. But I think that the main point is this guy was a human being. He had his problems, just like we all have our problems.
For sure.
It's real.
I think the saddest part was his daughter grew up without a father. You know, that's the real tragedy here. She grew up without her dad, and you know, having to live the rest of your life under the shadow of the legend of your father and not really knowing him has to be tough. But man, let's end this on a high note. What a friggin' record, right? I mean, it's just it's badass. I love it, and I'm thankful that it was recorded and released to the world.
I'm gonna listen to it for the rest of the night.
Hell yeah, man.